We're also looking at an increase in gig work through software, Chore Monkey, things like that, where a lot of guys are making a reasonable income. Kind of reminds me of that South Park episode where all the maintenance guys are driving around in Cadillacs because they're in such high demand. Collectively, between our 8 mentors, we've got about 175 years of experience.
And I could see how like the prospects for my properties are struggling. Like I speak directly, right? In Fort Myers area, like right outside Fort Myers where I have a couple of duplexes, they've been devastated by inflation.
We do have a high turnover rate because we get a lot of people from New York, Oregon, Illinois that come out here because they hear it's a better life, and then they realize how hot it is and then the cost of living, and they usually dump their keys overnight.
It's very difficult to convince owners to pony up the money to get these guys off the properties, in classes to train, or to take classes, or to even spend the money for them to take their time out to do the classes.
It's a big reason why I joined this council, is because I feel underrepresented, in the world of multifamily, when meanwhile we're the backbone of it. And
we have 2 guests today, David and Robert. David, I'm going to start with you. Please introduce yourself to the group. Tell us a little bit about yourself, about the organization you represent, and we'll turn it over to Robert.
Great. Thanks, Adrian. Thanks for the time. So I'm David Williams. I'm the CEO of a nonprofit organization called Entryway. Some of you may have heard of us, but if not, we rebranded a couple years ago from Shelters to Shutters. You may have heard of that name. What we do is we place individuals into entry-level jobs within multifamily, grounds, maintenance, leasing, and these individuals are individuals that have challenges with housing. And so our job is to identify those individuals either through technical schools, community colleges, workforce development programs. We have some kind of training light that we do to get them familiar with the industry. That's an area that Robert heads up, so he'll tell you a little bit more about it. And then we have about 100 property management companies that we are in partnership with, that are able to interview, and if they find that they're excited about their candidacy, they can hire them. If they do, then it's a full-time job. We hope housing would then be discounted housing would be provided on site, so that they're not spending more than 30% of their income on rent. And so we're in markets mostly in the Southeast, Southwest, and then we just launched in mid-Ohio a few months ago. And our role is to try to place people in jobs and help them start a new career within multifamily. It's one of the great things about multifamily is a lot of people that are in very senior roles now started at an entry level, and so that's a little bit about what we do.
David, just for context and scale, how many people have you placed in 2025 through your programs in multifamily?
Yeah, so in 2025, in terms of individuals who both got jobs and apartments within multifamily, I think that number was 116. So that's just the individuals in the jobs. When you add in dependents, children and spouses, that's additional people. But then through our work, we also find that we'll place people in the jobs, but the housing doesn't come along with it. So that was another number. We place people into temporary positions through staffing agencies. So that's another group of people. We'll place people outside of multifamily, and then in some cases we'll get people housed. So kind of when you put all of it, and then with the training, it's usually about over 500 people a year.
Thank you, David. I want to turn it over to Robert. Robert, welcome to our group, and please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much. My name is Robert Whitehead. And as David mentioned, I'm the Training and Talent Development Manager for Entryway. I've been with Entryway for almost 4 years. I've been working in training and development management for over 20 years. The program training that we have here at Entryway is very multifaceted. We have online training offered through Grace Hill. We also have instructor-led webinars. And lastly, we have training that facilitated at each of our market locations in a classroom environment by subject matter experts. So it's instructor-led in-person training. And lastly, we have a number of volunteers that also facilitate training, resume writing, interviewing skills, mentoring, and so forth. So our training program is rather robust.
Thank you, Robert, for for the quick overview. Now I want to turn it over to Jonathan. He prepared a presentation for us, so I want to give him the opportunity to just kind of go through the presentation. I would ask of all of you, if you have any questions during the presentation, drop them in a chat box. If you have any questions for Robert or David now or later, also drop them in a box, in a chat box. And once we open to Q&A, it's just gonna be like a free conversation. Feel free to use the hand raise icon to intervene, to step on a stage. Just think about what are some things that are relevant to you when it comes to labor shortages, challenges, opportunities for us as an industry, and also have comments on anything that Jonathan might have had shared through his presentation. Jonathan, I'm going to turn it over to you right now. Welcome, sir.
Well, thank you, Adrian. This will be my first time sharing anything on Zoom, so we'll see how that goes.
Let's try to put a presentation on a screen. I think I'm not sure if we could share the screen another way. Let's just leave it this way.
Okay, marvelous. Well, thank you, Adrian, and thank you, everybody, for the opportunity. Not usually presenting this way. It's usually in front of a class of individuals, so bear with me. Try not to get too distracted by the technician in the extremely clean gear.
That's what AI does for you, right?
That's right. That's right. It's remarkable how this thing was put together. We're going to talk about maintenance turnover and the challenges that we're facing as an industry, getting talented individuals or even willing, in some cases, into the industry to train. Right now, we're looking at a pretty aggressive turnover rate within maintenance. We've got a lot of competing market for these talented individuals. Up where I am, every time there's a surge at the oil fields, for example, we lose a good amount of staff because they're in high demand and get pulled away to those juicy oil rig jobs. We're also looking at an increase in gig work through software, chore monkey, things like that, where a lot of guys are making a reasonable income just doing handyman work. Kind of reminds me of that South Park episode where all the maintenance guys are driving around in Cadillacs because they're in such high demand. So trying to look at this from two perspectives, one from the HR perspective and one from, let's say, a maintenance manager perspective. Having done a bit of both, previously with our company, we were relying entirely on human resources to put out the ads, attract candidates, We would then onboard them with our mentors in a very, dry environment and put them on site, put a roller in their hands and tell them to get to it. And obviously that wasn't really working. So about 8 years ago, we had started a new program, whereas we started screening a lot more carefully for candidates. The human resources would find the initial candidates that seemed to be a good match through resumes and an initial screening call. And then if they were successful, we would continue on with a second interview, which involved one of the mentors. Now, our mentors were all ex-maintenance, many years of experience. They had a pretty good feel for what they needed, and we would go through some very technical questions, assessing whether or not this individual had the makings of a maintenance technician, provided that they could talk the talk, as it were. We would pull them into a conditional offer of employment where they'd have to go through their physical. They'd come join us in our training center for a 2-day evaluation where we would very hands-on go module to module. We'd have them putting together sinks and faucets, doing soldering, drywall tiling, flooring, having them operate a variety of power tools to ensure that they were doing so safely. And we would be scoring them as they went. And if they got a high enough score, they would be onboarded. But in addition to that, we would provide them with a training plan on anything where they had skill gaps. So, I mean, we had several very qualified electricians come through to be maintenance technicians, and they blew through the electrical, but absolutely tanked on the plumbing. It wasn't the end of the world, provided they had enough cross-compatible skills. We would put together a training plan. We'd follow up with the associate at 2 and 4 and 6-week intervals. And we'd really make sure that they were getting the experience required to operate solo. Sometimes they were paired up with senior maintenance for a period of time. And by the end of 6 months, almost all of them came through successfully, and many of them are still with us today. One of the problems with this kind of setup is that you need a pretty big infrastructure, right? You would need human resources, you would need maintenance mentors, you would need the ability to follow up with them on site, tracking their progress, creating the training plans. It's fairly involved, but it was highly successful in producing qualified maintenance individuals that stayed with us. It really reduced our churn rate on maintenance associates by quite a bit. Obviously, they were still getting poached by competitors. But having this system in place really allowed us to take people that wouldn't otherwise be completely qualified for everything and build them up in a suitable fashion. One of the things that you would need with a system like this is a way to measure this progress, which again is one of those infrastructure things. We use Dayforce to kind of keep track of all the training and development of our associates. There's lots of software out there that can do it, but again, it requires somebody who's able to manage, curate, and keep track of all these, KPIs to ensure that we're actually getting qualified individuals doing the work. Oh, I think I skipped one. So within the first year, our turnover rate dropped pretty drastically, 20%. Our evaluation pass rate was between 60 and 70%. And we were fairly strict. If there was any safety issues, like maybe we would remind our guys, once or twice, put on your safety glasses, right? Make sure you're wearing them. But we'd have guys using saws in very dangerous ways, and that they'd immediately be removed. It was a great way to see how the individual was going to behave on site in a much more quantitative process. It made it a lot quicker for us to fill positions with qualified individuals. And our training plans kind of gave the guys a path that they could follow in order to succeed. They weren't just kind of thrown out there to the wolves. Overall, we've seen a turnover rate drop of 30% in the long term. And obviously, our response times for our jobs has been trending down ever since. Well, plateaued pretty much in year 4, but it's finally at reasonable levels. So with this sort of setup, it's again designed to make sure that you've got a steady flow of talented individuals, kind of a counter flow to attrition, where we see our guys retiring or leaving for other jobs. And then that's pretty much it. What do you guys think?
Thank you, Jonathan. We have a question here in a Dropbox, someone that's not being identified, that's typing from an iPhone. Is your company an owner, operator, or fee managed?
Yes, we own all our own properties.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation. I want to open it to questions. Are there any questions? They could come later. I have several right now. But I do wanted to ask you, when you're thinking about Entryway and kind of the structure of the programs that they have in place, how could a nonprofit like Entryway plug into your existing system?
Well, you could pretty much, with the technology that's available today, you could streamline the process without having like dedicated HR. I mean, if you were to use Zip Recruiter or whatever to do all the initial screening, you could even use a chat bot to ask all the necessary questions in the second interview. But it is fairly crucial to have a skilled maintenance tech evaluating the responses of the applicant to make sure that they've got a good feeling for what they're talking about. For example, we would ask questions like 16-inch or 24-inch on center, where and why, and then we just let them talk. And a lot of the guys would know exactly what we were talking about, what that meant. It would indicate that they had a strong knowledge of framing or insulation. But then we'd have the guys that were just kind of ha, try to, fake their way through it. And it became obvious that wasn't their strong suit. And we do this on multiple different topics to get an idea of how complete their understanding of maintenance and renovations would be. As far as I don't think that could really be replaced, that part of the interview process being so crucial. But going without the training center for the 2-day evaluation, I mean, ours was 2 days because we had a very wide range of things that our technicians would work on. We're not particularly siloed. At our location here in Alberta, we're able to work on a variety of things without needing to have trade certification up to certain degrees. We could do some electrical, we could do some plumbing, but that's not the case in every location. So it would of course have to be tailored. I mean, our evaluation center, our original one, was a single office, maybe 10 by 15 feet, and all the modules were on little pieces of plywood on French cleats, so we could swap them out on the walls as needed. It was really quite small. I see we have a question.
Yeah, there's a couple of questions. So Robert is the one that dropped the question in a Dropbox, and Dwayne, you're gonna be up next, sir. I see your hand up. So Robert, could you ask the question live so everybody could hear it in case they're not checking the chat box?
Sure. For Jonathan, I wanted to ask what your training consists of.
I'm sorry?
What does the training that you offer consist of?
So we train on pretty much everything, from appliance repair, tub reglazing, painting, basically anything that we need that hasn't been handed off to our special teams, which is grown substantially. So our guys are a lot more focused on the requests for maintenance, general suite turnovers, and of course service calls. But with our mentors, they've been doing the job for 20 years, almost invariably. So they train on absolutely everything.
Okay, and what medium is used to deliver the training? Is it in person on site, or is it virtual, instructor-led, or?
So we do a combination. For our initial training with the onboarding, it's all done at our training center with our mentors. There's a lot of work on the tablets. There's a lot of work of policy, procedure. And then we also go through a lot of the things that if they had weak spots within their evaluation, such as, electrical, we could take them into the training, well, the lab, we call it, and actually have them working on switches, working on plugs, light fixtures, teaching them how to use a multimeter. And then, of course, when we're doing our follow-ups, it's always on the site that they were assigned to, so that they gain additional familiarity with their buildings. We'll take them through primary equipment rooms, walk them through building shutdowns, all the preventative maintenance activities, draining drip drums, etc. So that's all done on site in person. Additionally, we have our training modules through Dayforce, which are refreshed every year, which is always fun when maintenance is complaining about having to do chainsaw safety. But they're usually very, very short, just kind of digital refreshers they could do on their phones.
Okay, last question. How did you go about soliciting the mentors to facilitate the training?
Well, that's always been their role. Whenever something kind of came out of their scope with our escalation flow, it goes through the mentor. So if they're not really sure on how to do something, they'll go to the mentors to get more information, and they'll escalate it, up the chain, whether it's going to special teams or whether that can be trained because it's within their scope.
Right. I probably didn't phrase that properly. How did you find the mentors to facilitate the training? Where did the mentors come from?
Well, the mentors, originally, it just came from a need to have a senior maintenance staff that could, teach as needed. And then the program kind of grew. When I was approached to her instructions specifically were, we need maintenance guys like the old maintenance guys that can just do everything without complaining.
Piece of cake.
Good luck.
So that's what I endeavored to build. but we opened the positions. We said this is what the job is going to entail. You are going to be the point of reference for these maintenance guys. They're going to look up to you. You are going to be not necessarily an end point, but like a goal. Like if you're staying within maintenance, eventually you're going to become a mentor if you don't branch out into preventative maintenance or plumbing or electrical or what have you. So it was easy for us. We had a bunch of guys with a lot of experience that were keen on teaching the other guys. But if you're trying to find those people from scratch, um, you I don't know how you would find such an individual because it's such a I don't know. They would
That's
really have
our
to.
biggest challenge. So it sounds like a lot of your facilitators or mentors, as you call them, are retired plumbers or electricians or etc.
Yeah, all of them right now are former maintenance. So they've all been working in the buildings collectively between our 8 mentors. We've got about 175 years of experience.
Okay. And is there services donated, or do you pay them for?
Oh yes, they're paid. So they hold salary positions,
Okay.
and a certain degree of rank, while not necessarily leaders of maintenance. We found it very beneficial kind of having the maintenance and the mentors on uh, separate leadership structures, whereas the maintenance guys could talk very plainly with the mentors. They could gripe if necessary. So
Um,
for a company like yours to find a suitable mentor, you may need somebody, maybe even a consultant with that level of industry experience to help you find your first mentors and kind of build them into that role, so that they're providing that.
that's our biggest
Guidance.
issue because it's cost prohibitive for us to actually pay instructors that are subject matter experts.
Oh, full-time mentors. Yeah.
So we have to really depend on individuals who will volunteer their time.
Well, it may be possible to find retired maintenance to volunteer in that way. I know Guillermo was talking about something similar, whereas retired technicians could be providing mentorship remotely with an app, which seemed very promising, and I hope we can explore that further. So it may be worthwhile to sit down with him, and I'd be happy to join in and lend my experience. Um, but yeah, in order to build that kind of pipeline that you need for regular maintenance to come in and be able to handle the amount of attrition, you kind of need to set up that sort of system.
Right. Yes, I'd be very interested in that. And it would almost have to be instructor-led online training because we have 11 different geographic markets. So it
Yeah,
would,
that does complicate things.
yeah, so it'd be difficult to find volunteers in each of the markets to facilitate, this type of training. So next best thing would be instructor-led online training. So yes, I'd be more than happy to have, an offline discussion with you and the other gentlemen, about putting something like that into play.
Excellent. I
Yeah.
look forward to it.
Robert, just I just want to make an offer. You're welcome to all of our conversations going forward. We meet virtually every other week, and let's have you back as often as you can. And obviously, if you're okay with this, we'll share your contact information. Actually, you could drop it in a chat, right, in a chat box, so those that
Sure.
want to connect and learn more, or like have offline conversations about what you do and what they do Absolutely, by all means. The whole idea is that, we're creating this community to, see matches, alignments, and, opportunities for us. So thank you again. Dwayne, you're up next, sir.
Yeah, Jonathan. Robert actually hit on a couple of the points for me. So, um, I was the one that put in the chat about the are you a third party or a fee managed or owner operator? Because my experiences are owner operators, this is an easy sell. Fee management, it's very difficult to convince owners to pony up the money to get these guys off the properties in classes to train or to take classes or to even spend the money to for them to take their time out to do the classes. So I was just wondering if you were third party and how you bridge that gap. The other question I have for you is, at any point in your process, do you do a written exam as part of your screening prior to the 2-day conditional offer and the mentoring and the oral questions? And anybody else out there that is on the maintenance side of our senior leadership, how many of you do a written exam or even an oral exam with candidates prior to, actually making offers, if any?
So, sort of. Prior to the evaluation, we do have a form which is more of a declaration of your skill level in the various fields that we're looking for. So, we break it down kind of like a 5-star sort of thing, whereas 5 stars would be the ultimate level of proficiency, whereas you know the work, you know the routines, you have um, structure to how you're doing these jobs. You're not just figuring it out as you go. Um, so it's like, okay, well, if they're declaring that they could teach others this subject, we will adjust our second interview questions based on that. We'll get into much finer details. They say they're pro electrician. We'll get into, three-way switches. We'll get into multi-phase breakers, and we kind of dig into them a little bit to test that. And then, funny enough, is we get them to do that again once they have the conditional interview. So that they come in, they see our training center, they see all the modules, and it's like, okay, what do you really think of your skills? And it's quite often different than the original interview. But by then they've kind of got a feel for the mentors and what they're up against. And it seems all very adversarial when I say it this way. But we're actually having a lot of fun in the process of the interview. It's very plain. It's not particularly professional. We're just having a one-on-one conversation with the guy and be like, okay, well, you don't know. That's fine. It's not the end of the world. We'll move on to the stuff that, you do know, and it really highlights where they're interested too. So that kind of pays off sometimes down the road, where it's like, oh, they really know their stuff on the flooring. Maybe there's a position for them on the flooring team within our special teams department. But hopefully that answers the first question, and you'll have to remind me the second question.
That was the one about, it wasn't more or less a general conversation asking everybody how many are using the test, and then how, if you were a third party or a property owned management company, which obviously you're not third party, so you couldn't really answer the next question, which is, how are you convincing those third party owners to get on board with the expense of doing this, right?
Oh, that was actually very much.
Because that seems to be my battle all the time.
Every year when we try to justify the budget of having 2 mentors that are not turning over suites, that are just out there training the guys, we have to point to things like the turnover rate. We have to point to things like how many outstanding jobs there are in the system. We have to point to the sites that are performing extremely well because they have a seasoned maintenance guy there that's familiar with the site, is familiar with the residents. They have a relationship. That's the kind of thing that we need to develop. Selling it from
So
the
do your guys travel around?
I'm sorry?
Do your guys have to travel around from market to market, or does everything happen at your lab? And if everything's
Our two
happening at your lab,
mentors travel the entire region that they're looking at. So
okay.
here in northern Alberta, they're traveling between Edmonton, Fort Mac, Grand Prairie, wherever the training needs to happen, they'll go and do it. They'll go do refresher training on things like aluminum wiring, flood response procedures. You know, following an incident, it's like, oh well, we could have handled that better. Let's refresh the training, and we'll send out the mentors. So they're not they're regionally kind of locked in. So we've broken it down: northern Alberta, southern Alberta. But you know, that's the two guys here are handling some 16,000 units within their portfolio, and well, over 100 maintenance guys. Um, so they're pretty spread out. But a lot of the initial training just happens at our training center.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dwayne. I see Vinny is back with us. Good afternoon, Vinny. Just wanted to say hi, welcome back, and wanted to see if you have a question for Jonathan. If not, I want to ask you, what do you see for opportunities for us to do better when it comes to these shortages, and maybe some best practices, some things that have worked for you in the past?
Yeah, it's good to be back. Been a long little time. I transferred to a property now in St. Pete, so just getting used to everything here. It's a high rise, different from where I was. I mean, as far as that stuff, the hiring stuff is, I don't know what really works anymore because there's so many different approaches. Everybody has a different answer, but I don't think any of them are 100% really going to solve everybody's problem, because there's so many barriers in the way, whether it be regionally, seasonally, there's just so many different things. And, it's been brought up several times about the training. The training has always been, how do you do it? On site, now they're going, people are using AI, using videos and books, and that's always been part of it. But, it's a very difficult process. We could talk about this for weeks, honestly. But I mean, I'm still waiting to hear a better solution, because it's hard to get people that care first enough to do this job. Then when you hit them with all the responsibilities that are pushed on them, and then you tell them to pay to try and keep them, is very difficult, especially down here in Florida. The HVAC industry pulls our people away like that, and they pay them double what they're getting paid from us. When they learn HVAC here, they can go even just in the apprenticeship program for somewhere else, and they're getting paid what we're paying them or more. And they don't have to really do a lot of the HVAC companies here. They won't put you on call for the first 2 or 3 years. So it's a lot of competition with everything. And then, where do you pull from? You pull from, like Jonathan was saying, you pull from the electrical industry, you pull from the plumbing industry, you pull from here and there. You're still only grasping straws because there's a whole bale of hay there. You're only going to get a handful of those people that are going to stay. And for one reason or another, they either jump ship and go to another company, or they jump ship to go to a different trade, or they like the trade. And I don't blame anybody for that. Believe me. When I first came into this, we had people that, hey, I like to change hot water tanks, and I like to do the plumbing. Okay. He said, I'm going to go be a plumber. So when they learned what they liked, they didn't want to do the appliances. They didn't want to do the HVAC, but they liked the plumbing. Another guy liked to do just the HVAC. Another guy liked doing the countertops and the cabinets. So we're getting pulled so many different ways, and it's just getting harder and harder to get the people trained up in the right way with the right attitude that care and want to be here. And then you got to pay them right. I mean, we could talk all day about getting training and the right people and having the right attitude, but if they're not paid right, they're not going to be all the way happy. Some people will just take whatever you give them, and they'll be happy that they have a job, but those days are now way in our past. You know, there's soapboxes out there everywhere on every social media stream that you can find, and every video, YouTube, whatever you want to look at. There's people talking about, you can do this, you can do that to make money, you can do this to make money. So it's no longer, you don't have to sit and be quiet and take it anymore, you know, and we have a voice. And this it's a big reason why I joined this council, is because I feel underrepresented, you know, in the world of multifamily, when meanwhile we're the backbone of it. And everybody knows that and agrees with that, I'm sure. So trying to get people in, it's kind of like you got to coax them in slowly and hope that that they care enough to really want to continue and push it further. And like you're saying, mentoring, all that shit, all that stuff is great. And you just have to get them to, you have to get it to stick. That's the part. That's the hard part.
Thank you, Vinny. It's good to have you back, and also, great insights. I try to get as many of us, on the record each meeting, because it makes everything like more valuable. Robert, your hand was up, so I'm gonna turn it over to you, and then Dwayne, you're up next.
Yeah, just a quick question. I wanted to ask if any of you use job shadowing as part of your training, and how effective you found that to be. If
anyone has any experience, just use the hand raise option, or drop a line in a chat. And Dwayne, you're up next, sir.
So I'll answer Robert's question first. Yes, I've used that. I've actually found the best training is hands-on training. Whether it's whether we're doing a roadshow training or whether we're just doing mentoring out in the field, hands-on is far better and more well received by the technicians than any virtual course or any written course that we could provide them. I wanted to mention or touch on two topics that Vincent brought up, and I agree with him on these two topics, especially. In Florida, we compete quite heavily with the trades because the growth in Florida, the 1,100 to 3,500 people a year moving into various counties and all from outside of the state, has had such a demand on construction, which also then has the demand on plumbers, HVAC techs, electricians, due to the trades. So yes, that is a competitive factor, but that's an ebb and tide, and it has been for the 37 years I've been doing this in Florida. You'll get into spells where construction will slow up and all those people will flood back to the maintenance industry. Okay. And then, when all the construction booms hit again, and then they all flood back to the trades. Okay. That's never going away. That's the first thing. So, and then the other thing he touched about was, seasonal problems. And, especially in Texas, Arizona, those really hot climates like Florida and all. I read an article about 4 years ago, and this was put out by the U.S. Department of Labor, that in tracking agricultural jobs and construction, those two industry, which depending on what state you're in, maintenance falls into construction or it falls into agricultural, that they found that the drop the key rate, okay, in those areas, the hotbed areas like Arizona, Texas, Florida, from the months of May all the way through till September, increased threefold over the rest of the nation. And that they also found workplace violence in those areas increased dramatically in those two trades during those same months, right? And I bring it up because this is how we treat our people, okay, that forces them or puts them in a position where it's, I'll go drop my keys and I'll go work at racetrack for the next 3 months making $20 an hour instead of the 22 I am dying out here in the heat and the sweat, right? Or it creates hardships and, or the way we treat them, sets them off, and then, and with some kind of workplace violence, right? And I bring this all up because, in my opinion, in every report that I read, whether it's the apartment association, trade shows, IRUM, NASHRE, when they talk about losing employees and the turnover rate, the third point that Vincent brought up was money. And yet all the big reports that I see, money's never the number one contributing factor as to why somebody leaves. It's a toxic workplace environment, or they don't feel, which I put this into toxicity as well, they don't feel they have any upward mobility, or they're not being appreciated. And I know I harp on this all the time, every time we talk about employees and retention and all, but I really truly believe 100% the brand that you build as an individual leader will have more impact on whether you can retain your people long-term or not. And it's not going to be about money. It's not, because if you're getting to the point where it becomes money, they're already feeling underappreciated, under-rewarded. And that's on us as leaders. And that's
I think I'm in agreement with like the treatment of our peers and our teammates and everything. I will have to say that the current times that we're in, right? The economical situation of the middle class and lower middle class has been deteriorated for years. And I speak not only from personal experience, I'm I have a couple of properties, actually, they happen to be in your area, Dwayne, and I could see how like the prospects for my properties are struggling. Like I speak directly, right? In Fort Myers area, like right outside Fort Myers, where I have a couple of duplexes, they've been devastated by inflation, to where literally I had to eliminate the demand to for them to put a deposit down, because they don't. Everybody that has like at that level any type of like savings, they depleted them just to keep alive, just to keep up with the bills. And it's month to month for a lot of people. And a single like event like getting sick for a week or something like that could like put them like out in the street. It's just like everybody's like walking such a fine line. So I'm saying this to just kind of create, the way I see it, right? In this situation, the big picture is that I think that money, it's becoming, because of that reason, it's also becoming, or at least they perceived, right, in their mind, it's becoming like very important, because it's not even a matter of like, I guess, work environment or enjoy or not enjoying, but they're questioning, am I surviving? Like, am I going to be evicted out of my house, right? And sometimes, $2 an hour or even more than that could like make that difference between like being behind on bills, being evicted, or, being able to like continue with your living.
I understand, but that's been a day-old problem in this industry forever. And I'm not talking about the money, and I'm not talking about just in the apartment industry. Yeah, of course, inflation has killed us all, not just middle class, lower class, middle class, that lower or upper middle class. I mean, it's hit us all hard. But that, I don't think is, money has always, I've always heard money. And I'm telling you right now, I've not seen salaries or hourly rates increase in a 5-year period the way it has in our industry. I mean, there's maintenance supervisors out there that are making $95K a year now, plus bonus structures. Okay, that with their housing and everything else, they're getting more than that, right? There's technicians that I know, Tech 2s, Tech 3s, that are $30 to $35 an hour. It was just 5 years ago that we weren't even paying supervisors $30 to $35 an hour, let alone techs. So I think as an industry, we've come away. But there's also, and again, this goes back to the companies you choose to work for. Okay, there are companies out there still trying to pay people $20 to $22 an hour to be a Tech 3. Okay, still trying to pay supervisors to be $25, $26 an hour. Those companies they're massive turnover cows. I won't use names, but I recently departed from one that couldn't quite understand that, the pay scale in Florida and Texas is considerably different than North and South Carolina, and you got to pay for that, right? And it took 4 years of harping and complaining by senior leadership on the ground here to get them to realize and start adjusting to that. So yes, there are pockets of that, especially as management companies and ownership groups venture into new markets and they don't really understand the markets when they buy into those markets, and trying to get them on board with, paying their people what they need to pay. But I really do believe salaries have come a long way, and yes, they still need to be a topic, right? But I always say also, you make your deal, right? You have every opportunity in the hiring process to say, you know what, that's not enough money. I'm sorry. I can't do it for that. I can't live for that. I can't sustain for that. Right. And when people accept the job, making what they're making, they're telling you that they're okay with that. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that down the road that they don't deserve to get increases and promotions and all that based upon their skill sets and their improvements and and also their work ethic, all that. But people are accepting the jobs for that, and they're accepting the jobs for what people pay. That's not why they're leaving. If they took the job for that to begin with, chances are that's not why they're leaving. Now, there's a rare few. Obviously, they bounce from place to place to place for the next buck if they could get it, right? But that's not the employee you want long term anyway, because I don't care how much you pay them, the next highest bidder is going to take them from you. Right. So I don't think money is as big of a issue as we want to make it in the hiring process, and especially in keeping people. Right. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe somebody can prove me different, but that's not what I see out in the field. And that has not been my experiences over the years.
I'm curious
There's
about
pocket.
Yeah, I'm curious about some data that might exist out there that says one way or the other, because I think it's not a either or here, like what I said or what you said. I think there's
Correct.
nuances, a lot of like in between. So I'll be curious if there's some hard data right there that actually tells that story based on like polls and things of that nature. Jonathan, you're up next, and Robert, I see your hand up, so you're gonna be right after Jonathan.
Frustratingly, everybody's right. Vincent is absolutely right that money is becoming a more all-consuming metric in this field. I mean, we used to be able to hire basically on the value of the position. We had stable work, which was really attractive to the contractor types that were constantly getting bounced around and didn't have regular money and off seasons and things like that. But with inflation and everything, we've also had a decrease in the number of people that are willing to stay just for the culture and regular pay. So it's I mean, if the market will bear you paying your technicians next to nothing, great, they're willing to accept that money. But is that the type of person that you want? If you don't really have a culture with your company, then money is likely going to be the primary factor. If you have a culture and long-term prospects in a company like Boardwalk, we don't want to hire the people that are mostly focused on getting the top dollar because they're never going to stick around. And we kind of filter for that. The people that we hire kind of have to match the vibe. We're a bit more familial, which is, obviously asking way more than we pay you for. But it really depends on where you are. I mean, my position specifically, I had to negotiate for a much higher salary than I was making in order to stay, just because Canada has become a very expensive place to live. At the risk of walking out of a, multi-decade career. So everybody's right in terms of the motivations are changing, the landscape is changing. I do not envy companies that do not have a culture to fall back on because they're going to have to reach deep in their pockets to hold on to people.
Robert,
Absolutely.
you're up next.
Sure. I agree that compensation is important for everyone, but statistically, across the board in all industries, the number one reason employees leave employers is because of poor treatment by their direct managers or
Leaders.
supervisors. And I have my degrees in human resources, and I follow up on this, and that's still the number one reason. It's often said that individuals don't quit companies, they quit supervisors or managers.
Thank you, Robert. As we approach we're actually at the top of the hour. I have two of our members here that I wanna acknowledge. First of all, like Michael, you've been with us for the entire hour, so I want you to think about a few words here on a topic. But first, I want to go to Elston. I know this is your first call, so welcome to the group, and just tell us quickly about yourself, like what you're currently doing, and a little bit about your multifamily history.
Very well, no problem. Good morning and good afternoon. I understand we're all on different coasts. I'm glad that I was able to join. My apologies for not being able to get in, but I'm here now and I plan on being here. So to explain a bit about myself and my history, my whole entire career since the day I graduated high school has been predominantly multifamily housing. Started out as the typical groundskeeper that doesn't exist anymore, meaning you have every single title from maintenance tech all the way to supervisor duties, but you're just a groundskeeper, right? So worked my way up from there to where now I am the corporate maintenance director for the Wolf Revel Experience. This company is twofold. They predominantly build multifamily housing communities. They let third-party clients run them for them, but they've also now put their feet in the water of senior living. So I'm over the side of building the brand, which this conversation was intriguing for me because this current company, they're so new, they don't have any culture, so to say, right? So when they hired their maintenance guys, the maintenance guys were predominantly, I guess you can call them glorified housekeepers. You ask them to go and put their hands on something and they're looking at you like, I'm in kindergarten. What are you asking me to do here? I don't understand any of this. So having to figure out training, having to figure out policies and procedures, preventative maintenance plans and things of that nature is what my day-to-day duties really involve right now. So building the culture. Yeah, it's hard times out here, but I agree with everybody on this call for the little bit that I heard. It is a mix of pay as well as a mix of the environment that people work in. Me, myself, I've never lost anyone, regardless of whether it was money or not, because of the environment that I built. I always preached and I teach the fact that when you're on a property, yes, you're employed by the company, but you're essentially building your own island, right? So whatever energy that you're putting into your island, that's what's going to determine how successful your island is going to be. So there was moments to where money conversations came up. The VPs would come down telling me, we'll give you 7%, but your guys are going to get 2. And I was that guy that would tell them, you can keep that 7 and give it to my team. You're going to have to pay me later anyway, right? So it's a mix of everything in the industry. But again, I'm taking too long to talk. I will speak more once I join the meeting in the beginning, but that's me. Multifamily through and through. I love this industry. It breaks my heart to see the struggles that we're having, but I feel like it's going to bounce back and it's going to recover with the right people in the right positions.
Well,
Absolutely.
it's gonna take all of us, on this effort. We can't really expect from like external help. It's great when that comes our way, but for the most part, nobody's gonna save the day. We gotta make, we gotta figure out how to do it. And this group, is meant for us to like support each other, do the very best that we can to like raise the level of our voices and everything collectively so we could influence more change. than we have been historically. So thank you. Great to have you, Alston. Michael, you want to say a few words? You've been with us for the entire call, and hadn't had a chance to give you the floor.
Well, being one that's in Arizona, and I know from the month of May to probably pretty close to November, good luck seeing your home with the amount of heat that we have and HVAC calls. It is ridiculous. And that's one of the things that, I see as one of the biggest problems out here is burning techs out over the summer. And that's usually when they quit. And yes, we do have a high turnover rate because we get a lot of people from New York, Oregon, Illinois that come out here because they hear it's a better life, and then they realize how hot it is and then the cost of living, and they usually dump their keys overnight and they're in their cars and they're on their way back to a cooler climate. One of the things I'm thankful for is I do get to consult with a fairly new company, and I've been able to bring back some of the items like, back in the day. I've worked for companies where you actually had completely free rent if you were a supervisor, and you had about 50% off if you were a technician. And a lot of that stuff went away over the years. A lot of perks and incentives of being there. And I've been working with building a culture that, is retained people, and I'm thankful for that. And we actually are now up to about 3 different guys that will travel from the different sites to help get caught up on stuff. And then in the wintertime, when things get slow and there's not a lot of turns, that's when I've got the company to actually consider, hey, this is a great time to start getting up on the roofs, checking the AC units, checking the voltage drops, checking the capacitors. Let's get some of this internal preventative maintenance done. And, these last 2 summers, they've actually been pretty tolerable. They haven't been overly stressed. And believe it or not, I know it's not a major necessity, but I actually convinced one property to get rid of all garbage disposals. And there went a lot of our kitchen calls of, backed up plumbing and stuff, and having a hydrojet, every other month because they're just dumping everything down the garbage disposal. And it's been a great blessing. And I've enjoyed, trying to change culture and change minds of how to keep and retain some of these great employees. And I'll yield there.
Thank you, Michael. Great insights right there. We're about to wrap up. I mean, we're, over the 60-minute mark, and I thank you all for staying extra. I would love for this to be like the type of call that we just keep on a call until we kind of we're getting tired, right? 2 hours, 3 hours. But I know that it's hard as it is for all of you and all of us, right? I should say, to spare time for this. It's always meaningful. Again, I wanted to say in 2026, I wanted to start our calls with a presentation, 15 to 20 minutes. I'm waiting for volunteers. So from this group, if you haven't volunteered to any of the topics, please email me in particular and say, hey, I would like to do a presentation on this. And you could present multiple times. Of course, it's going to be on a first come, first serve basis. Or if you have someone from outside that's not part of our group that you think will be a great expert that will bring value to our, to our group, I'm happy to include them. If you haven't sent favorite topics for 2026, we're open throughout the year. I don't want this to be Adrian's counsel and just, ideas to be just my ideas. All of us have great ideas. Send them over my way. Obviously, gonna have to prioritize because we could only do 25 topics in a year, right? Because that's how many meetings we have. I hope we get to a point where we're gonna make this a weekly meeting, but we're not there yet. And my hope is that maybe we hit 1,000 members by the end of the year. If you have coworkers or peers that work for other companies that could benefit from this, by all means, send them my way. I'd love to see our group growing and doing bigger and better things. I wanted to say a couple more things before closing. First of all, I wanted to thank Jonathan for taking the time to do the presentation. It was very informative, so I appreciate it, sir. The second one, there was something that Mike Malloy brought up, probably 2 or 3 months ago. He said that we should build a group for us to communicate outside of these meetings, right? So I'm just thinking because it's so easy, right, to use WhatsApp. I think I'm gonna create a WhatsApp group. I'm gonna send an email to you all, and then send me in private your numbers. I'm gonna add you to the group so we could make this like an ongoing situation. So we don't have to wait for like a conversation topic. This could be like a very live community that we could build on also on a WhatsApp. And I looked at like other things like Slack and whatever. I think we were kind of like in agreement, or I guess the majority kind of like this idea. So I'm gonna say WhatsApp is gonna be the platform. I'm gonna start building the group out there, and we could communicate, I will say, offline, right? In between our meetings. Tyus, I see that you thought it was it was a different time for the meeting. So I just wanna acknowledge, just say welcome back. I saw your email, so I'm eager to make time and just kind of like read your suggestions for this year topics. This is about all the time we had today, gentlemen. Great conversation as always. I'm gonna follow up with some takeaways from the meeting, and I think we're gonna have this video on YouTube in a couple of days for those that miss the entire conversation. Thank you all. Have a great afternoon or morning if it's still morning where you at.
Thank you.
Take care.